Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with the next update for my Pan Those Eyeshadows. I am as always very excited to share with you where I am with my eyeshadows, but before we jump into that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just jump into where I was with my first eyeshadow last month. So as always, I'm going to go through the eyeshadows in the order of which has been in here the longest, and the first eyeshadow that has been in here the longest, actually the only one that's been in here for 2 months now, is my eyeshadow that came from my Focus palette. And as you know, if you have been following this project this year, I have kind of 2 palettes that I'm focusing on and having a focus shade from each month, and that is my 2 Naked palettes. And this month I have been working on my Naked 3 palette, and the shade that I've been working on in here is the shade Limit, and this up here is where I was with this eyeshadow last month, and like I said, it had been in the project for 1 month at this point. And in the past month I have used this an additional 10 times, and I'm happy to report that I now have pan on this eyeshadows. You can see it right there. It's a tiny pan, but it is pan nevertheless. I'm just really excited to now have 4 pans actually in this palette. I have 1 here and then 3 up there. So this is starting to get a bit more use, which is really nice. And this eyeshadow was quite difficult to pan on. It was probably my first eyeshadow that I ever had in this project that was really hard for me to pan on, because I think first of all I was kind of worn down of these kind of pink tone looks, because I also have a quite similar tone but slightly deeper shade in my whole collection project palette that I'm currently trying to pan on as well. So I was just kind of worn down with these mauve tone looks, so it was difficult for me to reach for this, but like I said, I reached for it an additional 10 times, so like basically 2 full weeks of usage using this and making mauve tone looks, but I was able to hit pan on this. I do think I have a few looks with this palette at the end of this video if you want to see what kind of looks I did to hit pan on this shade. And there you have the kind of mauve tone shade from the Naked 3 palette. As you can see, it's just a really nice transition shade, and that's kind of how I used it. And if I haven't said already, it took me 24 times in total to hit pan on this eyeshadow. So the rest of the shades I have right here in these 2 palettes. I have my Subculture palette, and then I have my little Magnetic Sea palette, because the rest of the shades are either singles or Colourpop shades, which are easy to depot. But yeah, all of these have been in now for a month, so I only have 1 month of usage on them. But let's just go through them one by one. So the first shade that I have is my Colourpop shade from the Child palette, and this one is in the shade Babyface. It is actually kind of what I have on my eyes today, so if you look at my eyeshadows, the minty shade that I have in my inner corner and on kind of the outer end is this eyeshadow. So this right here is where this eyeshadow was last month, and it was completely brand new. I never even swatched it, I believe, because this palette is relatively new in my collection. I know this was not one of the shades that I was kind of excited to swatch when I first got it, and I hadn't used it before. So in the past month I have used this 6 times, and this right here is where I am today. So I'm hoping you can see that there is a slight dip in this eyeshadow, but not too much use yet. The Colourpop mattes are really difficult to pan on, in my opinion, at least most of them. So they are quite slow going, and they're also relatively thick pans for being so small. So I know this is going to stay in for at least 1, possibly, I think, to be honest, more like 2 more months. And also these kind of green eyeshadows is not something that I can wear on an every single day basis, which is also why my usage isn't amazing on this eyeshadow. But I am happy to work on it, and it is a beautiful kind of mint shade. Again, you can see it on my eyes. So yeah, I'm happy to be working on it, and it's actually already the 2nd pan that I have in this project from that palette, so it's going to be nice to have eventually 2 pans in that one as well. So yeah, this eyeshadow stay in for another month, and you can see the swatch of it right there. So the next eyeshadow that I have in this project is another one from a Colourpop palette, and this comes from my Yes Please palette, and it is in the shade Champs. So I might have used this shade a little bit before rolling into the project, because the Yes Please palette is a bit older in my collection, but you can see right there that it was still relatively new, and I have reached for this shade 13 times in the past month, and this right here is where I am today. So you can see that there is a dip in this eyeshadow, and there's definitely like starting to be a really nice dip, but obviously I'm not super near pan either. I think however that this is definitely a shade that I will be able to roll out next month, because this is slightly more powdery than, for example, the Babyface shade that I just talked about, and also this is a shade that I can use more in every single day looks as well. The reason why I only have 13 used on it and not more is because I think that's kind of one of the downfalls for me this month, is that a lot of my shades were transition shades. So for example, when I was working on this shade, I couldn't really use this at the same time pan because I would use them in the same way. Similarly with this green on the sleeve, unless I did like a placement where I did like, I think I did that one look where I did the pink on my inner crease and then the green on my outer crease, that I couldn't really use them together. So yeah, that kind of hindered my progress a bit this month, but again, I don't think there's any worry in hitting pan on this next month. And there you can see the swatch of Champs. It's a really beautiful kind of peachy nude shade that I love using as a crease color. So yeah, like I said, I think this is going to be one that I'm going to focus on next in this project. The next shade that I had in this project for the last month is one that comes from my Subculture palette, and again it is a nude transition shade. This is the shade Dawn, as you can see right here, and it's like more of a kind of nude, it's like skin tone shade, but I think it looks a bit deceiving in the pan because it looks more of a setting shade, but it definitely shows up as a crease shade as well. So with this eyeshadow, this right here is where I am right now. So you can see that there is a little bit of a dip in this eyeshadow, and I have used it 5 times. But again, I didn't really reach for this that much because I first focused on the Limit shade, and then next up I focused on Champs, and I couldn't really use this with those 2 eyeshadows. So like I said, I think that's kind of why I didn't pan on that many shades this month, is because they were all kind of used in the same way. But again, this is one shade that I think I should be able to roll out next month because the Anastasia formula is a bit more powdery, and also the pans aren't as deep as the colourful ones. So yeah, this is one that I'm really gonna try and roll out by next updates. And there you have the Dawn shade swatch out. It's definitely more of a nude shade, but you can see that it still shows up as a transition shade. Then the final shade that I had in this rotation was a shade from MAC, and this is one of their singles, and it's I think from the Extra Dimension eyeshadow range, and it was in the shade Amorous Alloy. This one I did say in the beginning, you can see in the picture too, that how this is made, it kind of has a wave pattern in it, and I had worn that down a little bit already, but that also made that it was already kind of dip in the center of this eyeshadow. And as you can see now, I was able to pan on this, and it only took me 5 uses, which is really strange for me because normally MAC eyeshadows are really hard to pan on, but I think since I already had that kind of indent where the wave pattern was, I was able to pan on this relatively quickly. So yeah, I do have pan on this, and this was a beautiful shade to use kind of all over my lid as a base, and then top it with like a sparkly shade or as another corner shade, and even kind of up in my crease a little bit. So that's how I reached for this past month, and I did really enjoy using it as well because it's just like a beautiful kind of dimensional shade, and it was nice to use both as like a lid shade but also into the crease because it is more of a satiny, slightly more shimmery shade. So yeah, it was beautiful to use, and I am happy to now have pan on it. And there you can see the swatch of Amorous Alloy. You can see that it is more of a satiny shade. It's not super shimmery, but it was beautiful, and I think it was a really nice, I think this would be a really nice one and done eyeshadow as well, but I haven't really gone for those looks recently. But if you do like those type of eyeshadow looks, I think this was one that you can easily reach for that effect. So those were the 5 eyeshadows that I've been working on over the past month, and I did only get pan on 2 as you can see, and I do have 3 left, and I do have 3 transition shades still, which is a bit annoying. So I have kind of, I mean, I can't really, I'm not going to use reroll, but if I do get another transition shade, I probably will veto that out, because as I said in my introduction, I do have 5 vetoes this year, and so far I've used 1. So we'll see, but yeah, if I do get another transition shade, I probably will veto that out. So I did update my spreadsheet this morning just to make sure that everything's up to date, and I currently have 640 eyeshadows in my collection. So let's go ahead and randomize the one shade that's going to come from my spreadsheet, and then we're going to do my focus shade afterwards. So the shade that I'm going to roll in from my spreadsheet comes from number 329. So this is kind of interesting actually, because 329 actually comes from one of my focus palettes, and that is the shade Dark Horse from the Naked palette. So I do have it here, and now the question is, should I re-roll because this is one of my focus palettes, or should I use this as my focus shade? I think what I'm going to do, because it's this shade right here, and I feel like re-rolling would be cheating, so I think I'm going to keep this in. But then the next question is, should I pick another shade for my 2 focus palettes, or should I use re-roll in my spreadsheets? And I think I'm actually going to pick another shade for my 2. Actually, I don't know. It's so difficult because I feel like I do want to get as much use out of these 2 palettes as I can this year, but also I do want to give my other kind of collection some love as well. So I think for now I'm gonna go ahead and re-roll another shade from my spreadsheet and then see what happens. And if I, for example, get another transition shade, I might take that as a sign to pick this as my kind of run-on shade and then pick another shade from my focus palette. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and re-roll for my spreadsheet and see what I get. And that is 222. So 222 is actually another shade from my Colourpop palettes, and this one comes from my Colourpop She palette, and it is the shade Philly. This is actually quite I don't really know what shade that is because I have combined a couple palettes in my She palette, so it is difficult for me to know what shade that is. But I'm going to pull that palette out, and then I'm going to use Dark Horse as my focus shade, and then I will be right back. So I went ahead and I swatched Dark Horse right there, and as you can see, it's quite a deep shade, but it's going to be nice to use because I can use it in conjunction with these transition shades. So that's the first shade, and then for the She palette, I actually haven't looked what shade it is, but I've looked in the back and it is the shade that should be in this corner right here. So let's go ahead and see what eyeshadow that is. So it's this one right here, which looks to be like a duochrome, more of a flaky shade. And also, if you're wondering why this is missing, it's because I'm working on this eyeshadow in my whole collection product pan. It's actually the mauve shade I talked about before that looks quite similar to Limit. But yeah, I'm going to swatch this shade Philly and see what this looks like. And there you have that shade swatched out, and it's actually a really beautiful shade. I'm very happy that I pulled that in, and I think it's going to pair really nicely with these two shades here, and even like with Dark Horse maybe, and it's going to be a really nice kind of lighter look for summer and spring. So yeah, that's my new color palette for the month, and I think it's probably more variety now than I had in the past month because I do have obviously still 3 transition shades, but now at least I have a deepening up shade as well as a lid shade. So I'm very happy with that, and hopefully I can roll at least 2-3 of these out next month. So I do have a few looks to share this month as well, so I'm going to pop them up here while I speak about them. This look right here is the first look, and as you can see, I'm obviously wearing a baby face in this look. That's the majority of this look. I put it, I think, all over my crease as well as slightly on my lid, at least the outer half of the lid. And then for my inner half, I used a shade from the Mint to Be palette in the shade Mojito Mami, which I'm also trying to pan on different projects. It was a very kind of minty look, but a very spring appropriate look as well. And I think for my inner corner, I used one of my Cleona iridescent shades just to get some brightness as well. So that is the first look. The second look is the look that I talked about, where I did half kind of the mint shade, half of the limit shade, and I think I decided to do it all matte, so I do have it all over my lids as well. And then in my inner corners, I believe I have that Mojito Mami shade again, because I am trying to take pan on that. So that's a simple look, but it was quite nice, and I don't often do kind of all matte looks, but I did enjoy how this turned out. Then the next look is definitely my favorite look, I think, from this past month, because it was just so kind of fresh, light, and like I just loved the kind of blend of everything. So I do believe I have the shade Champs as my starting off transition shade, as well as like mainly in my outer corner. And then for the kind of yellow in the inner crease, I used the shade Blah from the Beauty Bay and Naked Source palette as a blending out shade. And I didn't feel like that was bright enough, so I actually reached for New Wave from my Subculture palette to just make it a bit brighter. And then for my lid, I have the shade Burnt Sienna from Cleona, which is one of the deep iridescent multi-chromes. And yeah, I loved how this turned out, and it was such a nice kind of spring to summer look. So this next look here is basically the look that I used to pan on Limit. I did this so much in the month because I was trying to also pan on a couple of other shades that was kind of pink or mauve tone. So I started off with Limit in the crease. On my outer corner, I used a shade from my Pana palette, which is the shade Faint from the Naked Basics palette. And then on my lid, I kind of used the Super Shock Shadow in Legionnaire all over my lid, as well as kind of slightly over that matte in the outer corner. And then I topped the lid off with the shade Wild Child from the Novena palette, again from Anastasia, to kind of make it a bit lighter and also fit in better with the mauve tones. And I really loved how this look kind of looked, and it was very nice for work, and it was really good because I utilized a lot of shades to pan on, and yeah, it was nice. And that is, like I said, how I pan on the shade Limits. The next look right here is a look where I used Amorous Alloy all over my lid. In my crease, I think I used Limit again, but then I didn't like how that looked because the shade Amorous Alloy looks quite mauve tone in the pan, but it does show up a bit more kind of coppery orange on the eyes, as you can see. So I did also use a little bit of, I think, Dawn or possibly Shams, just to kind of make it a bit more neutral in the crease. And then for my outer corner I used that kind of deep brown shade again from my Panda palette. And yeah, I just wanted to try out almost alloy all over the lid, and I did this look I think twice, which really helped as well to pan on that shade. So those are the looks that I have photos of this month, and I did also do another kind of couple of looks, but I don't have them on my phone. If you do want to see more of my looks that I do throughout the month, I do post them now a bit more on my Instagram, on my stories, so you can follow me over there if you want to see kind of more of my everyday looks rather than just the looks that I do when I film. So yeah, I have my link to my Instagram down below so you can check it out, but it's just sofiealexandrahearts over on Instagram, so you can go follow me there if you want to see a few more of my looks. But there I guess is it for this update. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm a little bit sad that I only hit pan on 2 eyeshadows this month, but it's still pretty good. And since I had all mattes, apart from this which is a satin but it's also matte eyeshadow, I'm really happy that I kind of got a few dips going, and I think I do have a really kind of good chance on hitting pan on these 2 shades next month, as well as possibly even this shimmer shade that I rolled in, because it does look like it's a bit more flaky, and although the Colourpop pans are quite deep, I think it's going to be a nice shade that I can reach for almost every single day. So hopefully I'll be able to roll 3 shades out next month, but we'll have to see. So let me know how you do with your projects down below, and otherwise I really hope you're having an amazing day, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye guys!